What if your dog didn't find you by accident? Out of every home they could have entered, out of every family they could have loved, out of every possible path their life and yours could have taken, why did they end up with you? Was it simply luck? Or was something already unfolding long before the two of you ever met? Most people never stop to ask that question. They smile when their dog greets them at the door. They laugh at the little habits they've come to love. And they assume it's just another ordinary relationship. But every now and then, something happens that makes that explanation feel far too small. Your dog knows you're hurting before you've spoken a single word. They wait by the door moments before your car pulls into the driveway. They somehow understand you on days when you barely understand yourself. Coincidence? Maybe. But what if those moments aren't as ordinary as they seem? Today, we're going to explore 5 extraordinary truths about dogs that have fascinated millions of people around the world. Each one uncovers another piece of a mystery that has puzzled scientists, inspired storytellers, and quietly stayed alive through generations of dog lovers. And if you stay with me until the very end, the 5th truth may completely change the way you look at the dog lying beside you tonight. It may even explain a feeling you've had for years, but never quite knew how to put into words. Because before we can understand what makes a dog so extraordinary, we first have to ask a much bigger question. What if your dog didn't simply come into your life? What if they arrived exactly when you needed them most? 1. Your dog didn't find you by accident. What if the answer isn't that you found your dog, but that your dog found you? It's a simple question, yet the more you think about it, the harder it becomes to ignore. Every day, people walk into animal shelters expecting to choose a dog. But sometimes, something completely unexpected happens. A family spends an hour meeting energetic, playful dogs. Then one quiet rescue, sitting silently in the corner, stands up and walks straight toward them. No barking, no tricks, no desperate attempt to get attention. Just quiet certainty. And somehow, that becomes the dog they take home. Then there are the puppies. An entire litter runs toward every visitor. Except one. One puppy calmly walks past everyone else and curls up beside a complete stranger, as though the decision had already been made. Rescue volunteers tell stories like these all the time. Dogs that ignored dozens of visitors, only to instantly trust one person. Dogs that refused to leave someone's side from the very first meeting. Dogs that looked as if they had finally found exactly who they had been waiting for. Coincidence? Maybe. But when thousands of people describe almost the same experience, it's difficult not to wonder. Many people believe there are connections in life that can't be explained by logic alone. Some call them soul connections. Others call them destiny. And many simply call them a meaningful coincidence. Not something magical. Not something that can be proven. Just one of those rare moments in life that feels too perfectly timed to forget. Could that be what's happening when a dog finds its person? Could it be why so many owners say, "I didn't choose my dog. My dog chose me"? No scientist can prove that, and no honest storyteller should claim it's a fact. But listen carefully to people who've shared their lives with dogs for years. You'll hear the same feeling again and again. Not certainty, recognition. As if meeting each other wasn't the beginning of the story, but the moment 2 paths finally crossed. If you've ever looked into your dog's eyes and felt there was something impossible to explain, you're not alone. Millions of people have quietly carried that feeling for years. If this story is already reminding you of the incredible bond you share with your own dog, I'd love for you to subscribe to Doggo Mind. Every week, we explore the science, the stories, and the mysteries that make our dogs so extraordinary. Because if dogs really do find the people they're meant to find, then perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how they find us. Perhaps it's what they already know, before we know it ourselves. 2. Dogs see what humans can't. Because if dogs really do find the people they're meant to find, then perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how they find us. Perhaps it's what they already know, before we know it ourselves. Think about this. How many times has your dog noticed something before anyone else? Not after. Before. Before your family realized you were overwhelmed. Before your closest friend asked if you were okay. Before you admitted it to yourself. That isn't just something dog owners imagine. It's something scientists have spent decades trying to understand. Today, researchers know that a dog's nose is unlike anything humans have ever possessed. Depending on the breed, a dog's sense of smell can be tens of thousands of times more sensitive than ours. They don't simply smell the world, they read it. A tiny change in your breathing, a subtle shift in your body chemistry, a single drop of stress hormones released through your skin. To your dog, those invisible signals tell a story long before words ever do. That's why specially trained dogs can detect certain cancers with remarkable accuracy. Why medical alert dogs can warn their owners before a seizure begins. Why some dogs recognize dangerous drops in blood sugar, giving people with diabetes valuable time to get help. Science explains much of this through scent, hormones, and body chemistry. And it's an incredible explanation. But every now and then, a story appears that doesn't fit quite so neatly. A dog suddenly refuses to enter a room it has walked into every day. Hours later, the family discovers a dangerous gas leak. Another wakes its owner in the middle of the night for no obvious reason. Minutes later, smoke begins filling the hallway. Some dogs become unusually protective around a person everyone else trusts. Others refuse to leave the side of someone who insists they're perfectly healthy, only for a serious illness to be discovered days later. Were these extraordinary instincts? A combination of senses we're only beginning to appreciate? Or something even more complex than today's science can fully explain? The truth is, no responsible scientist claims to have every answer. And that's exactly what makes this so fascinating. Because history shows that people were asking these same questions thousands of years before modern science ever existed. Long before laboratories, long before medical journals, long before anyone understood hormones or body chemistry, people around the world had already come to a remarkable conclusion about dogs. And somehow, they all seemed to arrive at it independently. 3. Why so many civilizations believed dogs were sacred? And somehow, they all seemed to arrive at it independently. How is that possible? How could people separated by oceans, by languages, by thousands of years, all look at the same animal and reach a surprisingly similar conclusion? Let's begin with many Native American traditions. To them, dogs were far more than loyal companions. They were trusted protectors, not only from dangers that could be seen, but from dangers that couldn't. Many believed a dog could sense changes long before a human ever noticed them. Its warning wasn't something to ignore. It was something to respect. Travel across the world to the ancient Celts, and a familiar idea appears. Dogs were closely connected with healing. They were often seen beside healers and sacred places where people came seeking restoration. To the Celts, a dog's quiet presence represented comfort, protection, and the hope that healing was always possible. Then look toward the Tibetan mountains. For generations, many families believed dogs guarded not only their homes, but the energy within them. They trusted that dogs noticed things beyond ordinary human awareness. Whether those dangers were physical, emotional, or spiritual, their instinct deserved attention. Finally, journey back to ancient Egypt. One of the most recognizable figures in Egyptian history was Anubis, the guardian who guided souls through the unknown. With the head of a jackal, Anubis became a powerful symbol of protection and guidance. To the ancient Egyptians, canines weren't simply animals living beside people. They represented safe passage through life's greatest mysteries. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. These civilizations never shared books, never shared languages, never exchanged ideas across continents. Yet they all left behind remarkably similar beliefs. Dogs protect. Dogs guide. Dogs seem to notice what human beings often cannot. Was that simply coincidence? Did completely different cultures create the same idea by accident? Or were they all observing something so consistent that the same belief emerged again and again? History doesn't give us a final answer. Perhaps it never could, but maybe that's what makes the question so compelling. Because if people have trusted dogs for thousands of years, perhaps the greatest gift they recognized wasn't extraordinary intelligence or extraordinary instincts. Perhaps it was something every dog owner experiences, every single day. A kind of love so pure, so unwavering, that even now science struggles to measure its true impact. 4. Losing a dog creates a unique kind of grief. And what about losing them? Because we can't talk about what dogs give us without talking about what happens when they're gone. Anyone who has ever loved a dog already knows. There is a silence that follows. Not an ordinary silence. A different one. The kind that catches you when you reach for the leash that no longer moves. When you unlock the front door and no one comes running. When you accidentally glance toward their favorite spot, only to remember it's empty. Have you ever noticed something strange? People rarely apologize for crying when they lose a parent or a close friend. But many people apologize for crying over a dog. They'll say, "I know, it was just a dog." As if the love they felt somehow needs to be explained. But does it? Because anyone who has shared years with a dog knows they were never just a dog. They were there on the ordinary mornings no one remembers. They celebrated the days no one else knew mattered. They stayed beside you through heartbreak, through failure, through loneliness, without ever asking you to become someone else. And when that kind of presence suddenly disappears, the space it leaves behind is impossible to ignore. Some people are surprised by how deeply it hurts, almost embarrassed by the weight of it. But maybe they shouldn't be. Because grief has always measured love. The greater the love, the greater the absence. No one is shocked when they miss someone who changed their life. So why should it be different when that someone walked on 4 legs? Think about everything your dog quietly gave you. Patience, when life moved too fast. Joy, on days that felt ordinary. Comfort, when words weren't enough. They never asked to be the center of your world. Yet somehow, they became part of it. Part of your routines. Part of your memories. Part of the person you slowly became without even realizing it. And maybe that's why saying goodbye feels so different. Because you're not only mourning who they were, you're mourning the version of yourself that existed while they were still beside you. So before we ask how to live without them, there may be an even more important question. Why did this one dog come into your life in the first place? 5. Why did this dog come into your life? So before we ask how to live without them, there may be an even more important question. Why did this one dog come into your life in the first place? Not another dog. Not any dog. This dog. The one who somehow understood you before anyone else did. The one who greeted you like you were the most important person in the world. The one who quietly became part of your everyday life, until you could no longer imagine life without them. Why this one? Was it simply chance? Maybe. But what if it wasn't? What if they came into your life to protect something you couldn't see? Not your house, not your yard, but something much more fragile. Your heart. What if they arrived when you needed comfort, before you even realized you were lonely? What if they taught you patience, because life had made you forget how to slow down? What if they showed you forgiveness, because somewhere along the way, you had forgotten how to forgive yourself? Or maybe they came for a much simpler reason, to remind you what unconditional love actually looks like. Not the kind that depends on success, or appearance, or achievement, but the kind that simply stays, day after day, year after year, without asking you to earn it. Think about your own dog for a moment. How many ordinary days became unforgettable, simply because they were there? How many difficult nights became easier, because they refused to leave your side? How many times did they make you laugh, when no one else could? Maybe those weren't small moments after all. Maybe those moments were the reason they came. We'll probably never know exactly why our paths crossed. Science may continue discovering remarkable things about dogs. History will continue telling stories about them. People will continue believing different things. But almost everyone who has ever truly loved a dog seems to agree on one simple truth. Life is never quite the same after sharing it with one. So maybe your dog didn't find you by accident. Maybe they arrived exactly when your life needed them. And maybe, without ever saying a single word, they became one of the greatest gifts you were ever given. If your dog has ever changed your life in a way that words can barely describe, I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey, subscribe to Doggo Mind, because every week we'll explore another remarkable story that may change the way you see the incredible companion waiting for you at home. Until next time, give your dog an extra hug today. You may never fully understand why they came into your life, but perhaps you were never meant to. You were simply meant to love them and be loved in return.